What is up, guys? Troy here, and today is Sunday, which means it's time for the weekly gaming news roundup. As always, I will be linking articles in the description to back up everything I'm talking about. So let's get started and jump in straight into the news for the week. First up is a little bit of Battlefield 4 news that we have. I'm going to be linking two articles about this one. Some info from DICE about both the single-player and multiplayer side of Battlefield 4. They go into some detail about the single-player storyline somewhat, what your squad is doing in terms of the story side, and why they're doing it, and kind of the setup for the rest of the game. I'm not going to be going into much great detail about the single-player, especially as we get closer to the beta and closer to the game release, because honestly, I really don't care at all. If they sold a multiplayer only version of Battlefield 4 at less cost, I'd buy it instead of the full version. And if they happen to link any multiplayer unlocks to the single player, I'm just going to go ahead and buy the shortcut kit for it, because I'm just not a big fan of single player for shooters, unless we're talking about a Valve game or something. But some of the more interesting information about the multiplayer side, the Siege of Shanghai map, which everybody knows we saw quite a bit of from E3 last month, is supposedly a medium-sized map, and DICE has stated that players will not be disappointed with the actual amount of maps within the base game. They also stated that not every building is destructible, which is not surprising, but you can do other things within the map, like cut power to certain buildings, which not only affects the elevators, but it also affects lights and some of the doors, how the doors work, and things like that nature. It's pretty much been all but confirmed that Operation Metro will be making a return in the Second Assault DLC. It seems that Operation Metro is the most popular map of all time in Battlefield 3, and quite surprising that it's actually more popular than Nose Hair Canal's TDM. And these are just few of the multiplayer tidbits of info that DICE has released. I certainly can't wait to hear more down the line. Now, some sad news to report. I guess it's sad for some people, not really for me, but PS3 servers for SOCOM Confrontation, SOCOM 4, and the game MAG are being shut down early next year. Now, I never played any of the SOCOM games other than the very first one back on the PlayStation 2, but I did try out MAG. I believe it was last year. They had some kind of free weekend or free week or something like that, and I actually wasn't all impressed. I remember seeing a bunch of previews for the game back in 2007. I believe it was on that show, Attack of the Show, and I was jaw-dropped once I realized that the game was actually released in 2010. I remember playing PS2 games from 2005, 2006 that looked and played more smoothly than MAG ever did, so I'm actually glad the servers are getting shut down. It was just an overall bad gaming experience for myself for that game. I'm certainly glad I didn't actually spend any money on it. Now, last up on the news wire is a little bit of Nintendo news. It seems in the wake of E3 and all the press and talk of new consoles coming out later this year and early next year, Nintendo has slated a bunch of releases for later this year on the Wii U. But is it too little too late? I guess we'll just have to wait and see. It really doesn't change the fact that Nintendo is still in really deep trouble, more so than Microsoft and Sony. And frankly, over the list of games that are going to be in the article that I link that are coming out this year, I can't help but feel indifferent about most of the games. These are the types of games that Nintendo insists upon selling over and over again. And at my age and at my stage of my gaming life cycle, if you want to call it that, I've kind of grown past these types of games and this type of gaming. I really want to see a Nintendo that can actually introduce new intellectual properties and new things to bring that older audience back into the fold. For me, Mario and Zelda just don't cut it anymore. I played those games, 20 years ago, and it's just not something I'm interested in these days. So I really want to see Nintendo innovate like they used to, because they certainly haven't innovated in quite some time. But that's this week's edition of gaming news. Not much to report. Hopefully we'll have some more Battlefield 4 news coming down the pipeline. I'd certainly like to see that. Well guys, I really appreciate you watching the video, and thanks for supporting me. Remember to stay tuned for tomorrow's episode of Battlefield 3 My Favorite Maps. As always guys, take care.